Welcome to Make My Vision Real, a local resource for starting and growing your small business. The show's founder and host is Susan Swartzwelder, a small business specialist who helps people start and grow the business of their dreams. Today's show is sponsored by the Business Launcher Workshop, a workshop designed by women for women to make their business vision real. Find out more at businesslauncherworkshop.com. Here's Susan Swartzwelder.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Make My Vision Real. This is a weekly show that focuses on helping people launch and grow small businesses. Today's topic is Business by the Books, how to develop an honest relationship with your business. My guest today is Jim Laudato. He is a CPA and president and founder of Laudato & Company in Chardon. Jim and his company, they're celebrating 10 years in practice, and they specialize on working with small businesses in strategic planning and areas of accounting and tax management. So welcome to the show, Jim.
Susan, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for coming. So the first part of the show, Jim, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about how you got into being in business for yourself and learn a little bit about your background, how what your focus is on, how you launched your business. I think it's important for my audience to sort of relate to where you came from and why you serve the markets you serve. And then in the second part of the show, we're going to talk a little bit more about in depth on how you go about helping your client base. So let's start out with, how did you decide that you were going to be a CPA, and where did your early career, where did it start and where did it take you?
Well, usually those things start in college, where you start taking courses and you start developing relationships around that career. I started with an internship actually with a regional company in Willoughby, and as I was going to school in my senior year, and then I got, as I said, as an intern, and then I got hired on. And through that process, you're just a public accountant at that point.
So it was with an accounting firm that you took the CPA?
Firm.
Okay.
So I was working for the company, and there were other younger professionals there taking the CPA exam, and it was encouraged to take the exam. So, one of the questions here is how did you become a CPA, or how did you get into the career? And it's your work permit, really, in this business. As a public, you could be in public accounting, or you could be a CPA and have higher training and take a career path that way. So I did that with them for 9 years. And we've had our ups and downs. I had different visions. I think what ultimately launched me into my own practice was the discovery of me. And once you determine where you're going and why you're at your position and what you're doing, if you have other desires, if you have other wants or other things that are pushing you, it kind of takes you in that direction. It actually was at I actually took a disc analysis.
Oh yeah, I know disc analysis.
Yeah,
did that in leadership.
Yeah, yes. And it was through the Chamber of Commerce when I was involved with them on the board, and we were at a retreat and we did this whole analysis, and it came back and it was like, it was me, and it puts you into situations where your natural abilities compared to what were asked to do at your job. And my natural abilities were more outside of the office compared to an accounting firm. An accounting firm, they charge by the hour. So they want you to bill whatever it is. They want you to bill 80, 90% of your time, sometimes 100% of your time. And So you're just there working. You're just there working by the hour, and they have an hourly rate, and they bill their time out, and away you go. Well, I'm not necessarily that type of person to be chained to the desk. So once I discovered that I was like, well, my job's asking me to do this, and I really want to do something else. But I do love what I do. And we got into public accounting because I wanted to help people. That was it, period. And I felt like I could touch a lot of people in the public area and be a part of that, but I wasn't being fulfilled from that standpoint because they wanted you to charge so much time. So you had to stay behind the desk and be at the desk so much time. So it's like, well, then I think I know what to do.
So at that point then, after 9 years of working at this one firm, so you didn't go anywhere else, you were at this one firm?
I did. I had about 6 months. I had to leave the firm. I didn't have to leave the firm I was at, but we were just going in different directions in terms of service and what I thought was that I could do better. And then that happens, and I have no regrets at all. That company has taught me everything I know. In retrospect, when you look back, they've done a lot for me. But it was time to move on after that period of time, and I went to a smaller company in Chardon, actually. And then at that time, I really, really knew that
you really knew
time for me to go. Yeah.
So once you decided that you were going to start your own company, how did you go about it? Did you just wake up one day and say, I'm done working for somebody else, and tomorrow I'm going to start my own business? Or did you make a plan to make the transition?
Yeah, no, you think about it all the time. It's not, you do think about it all the time. But you said wake up one day. Well, no, business owners don't wake up during the day. They wake up at night.
That's right.
They don't sleep.
2:00 in the morning every night.
They're up, and then they go back to bed, and because this stuff just kind of gets to you, and then you do research and you look, and literally, I did go speak to the owner of the company, and I told him that I had to move on. And he said, well, how many weeks are you going to give me? And I said, I don't know how valuable I'm going to be to you in the next couple of weeks, to be quite honest with you. I don't think it's going to be fair to you or for me. And I don't mean to be sharp about this, but I really think it's time for us to part. And I just can't hold back on this desire that I have right now. And I went home, and my wife was like, what are you doing? And I said,
what are you doing?
I said, I'm getting on the phone. And we got to get things going here.
Dialing for dollars.
Yeah. So, and that's really how it went. I did have some business behind me. It's not like I just started cold and I didn't have any thought process to it. And I knew that I had some client base to me, and to help me get to where I needed to go.
So was that a scary transition period for you, or did you have that I just know it's going to work? I mean, and you have a family too. I mean, did you have kids at the time?
Yes. Yeah. Lauren was just born. She's 1. Michael's 3. Boy,
there's nothing like that for an incentive to make it work, right?
I'll tell you what, though. I had a partner. Coming out of the gate, and they were extremely supportive. And you have to have that support. Now, I'm the founder and owner. I'm the sole owner of Laudato Company, Inc. But if that asset does not produce for the family, which my partner is my wife, Kelly, if she stops me, if she says, this is too much for me, I can't take it, I'm not, you had a steady flow of income and, all that. If she doesn't believe in me, then none of this happens. So I want to make that pretty clear that you might have all these aspirations and you're going to build the best widget in the world, but if your partner, if you're married, or whoever you're responsible for is not believing in you, is not on board, then you're gonna have other things to worry about besides selling your product.
You need that so much. My husband is very supportive of what I do, and it's always, how did it go today? What's good? What's bad? And there's always that dialogue, and very, very supportive emotionally. Especially getting out of the gate, you need a little bit of that financial backup getting out of the gate. Absolutely. But the emotional and moral support and just that I'm with you kind of.
Oh, it's not. That's not an easy transit. You're going to go through that. You have to expect that the financial, how much stomach lining you have is going to, for both of you at the time, is going to make a difference. Who can take it? How far you could take that. So
absolutely,
that's important.
So my next question, really, I think you've pretty much answered it. Is why did you decide to start your own office? And just if you could maybe speak a little bit more about that voice inside your head that kept driving you. It has a lot to do with the culture, I think, that we want to work in and create ourselves. We're creative beings, right? And the need to create, I think, is just really a lot stronger in some people than it is in others. And that's okay. I
always say that, thanks, Susan. I always say that we're here to help as many people as possible in any way we can. We just happen to be doing accounting and tax. We did the same philosophy as making bread.
Right.
It wouldn't matter. So when a person like me isn't necessarily out seeing 10, 12 people a day, 5 people some days, 7 people, whatever it may be, then I'm not I'm not at my best.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not at my best. Do I like debits and credits? Do I like telling you what to do with your equipment costs and all that? That's stuff that is handled through technology and with a little bit of training. We like to talk about really what's going on inside you. Really, why are you getting up every day? Before you decide to quit, let's remember why you started.
Yeah,
let's go back to that.
Start with why.
So that's kind of where we like to be. If we had to be anybody, we'd be a quasi board of director on your staff. We want to be there, at your monthly meetings, and you should have a monthly meeting. Even if you have monthly meetings yourself, you should have another, whatever it may be. They always, early on, they would be, well, how many people in your firm? I said 3 of us, me, myself, and I. And we're all here.
Sometimes some of us aren't present when we're having a meeting with ourselves. Yeah, I've had a couple of meetings.
There's a lot of that going on. Yeah. But I could tell you what, when you surround yourself with good people and you surround yourself with some people, the people that believe in you, leave those sour pushes off to the side. Don't worry about them.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people trying to hang on you and tell you why you can't do it and it's too dangerous and you're going to fall on your face and everything like that. Just get those people around you that believe in you, that want to carry you and open up your eyes and clear your lenses, and that's where you want to go in the beginning, for sure.
Right. Well, and even after you've launched and you've got some traction, having those people around you all the time, even after 10 years, it's good to have those types of people around
necessary.
You. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So being a man of numbers, yes. Realizing that it's all based on numbers and running the business, that's the huge foundation that we all really need to have. So that part must have been fairly easy for you. So knowing that, where did you struggle with the startup process of running your business? Everybody has a little bit different flavor and spin on that, based on their skill set. So where did you find your biggest struggle?
I think that making a name for yourself, meaning that you're giving away your services in the beginning. You're trying to create a reputation. You're trying to overserve. Not that you shouldn't overserve, but there's a point in time where you have to stop giving it away. There becomes a point in time where you say, you know what, because you don't know what the competition's like. Right. You don't know what the accounting firms are doing until you actually see their work, and you're like, oh my gosh. That's what's going on. Right. And then there's other ones that are a lot better than you. And then, so when you're coming out of the gate and you're trying to prove yourself, you're giving everything away. And rightfully you should. But there becomes a time where you can't do everything. And you have to figure out where you're going to be at that point and how confident you're going to be to step up and say, you know what, my product's darn good. My product's good. And I don't necessarily need to give it all away right now. And I want to work. And that was my problem too. Is like I always feel like I need to overwork in order to give them the best possible thing. And there's an easing off because you don't want to burn up in the first couple of years.
And it's easy to do.
It is.
It is so easy.
You're trying to establish yourself and establish a name. And if you give it all away, that's the kind of customer you're going to get too. Right. If your product's really worth $500 and you're giving away for $200, you're going to be getting, people are going to be asking for the same kind of deal. Right. And then that's where it's going to be at. And
so did you find it hard to sort of transition your pricing to meet your level of service then? Was that tough for you?
Well, in our business, it's pretty well established. I mean, we always see this too. We're never the most expensive, and we're certainly not the least expensive. But we also say that nobody's going to outwork us. Right. You're going to get the best service you possibly can. But you got to be careful. I mean, when people start saying, hey, they start asking more and more questions as to what you're doing, and they should. I have no problem answering those questions, and they want the open dialogue, and they think it takes a certain amount of time, and you have to explain things. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine.
I love the tagline that you have for your business. It's lead people, manage things, and count money. That really, I love that part of your business persona. And so how did you come up with that?
Oh, that's not mine.
That was not yours?
No. It looks like a lot of things. I don't claim that. I am very, very lucky to be very intimate with all my clients. As intimate as they want to be. I mean, this is obviously a personal relationship that I have with them. So, Mr. Hines, he's a former GE engineer, and I love talking to the older group. He's probably Mr. Hines is like mid-80s right now. But in any event, he mentioned that to me a long time ago when I first started, when we first got acquainted, which was probably 15, 16 years ago. And every year after that, I saw him when he did his tax return. I'm like, what is that you told me again? He's like, all you got to remember, Jim, lead people, manage things, count money. I'm like, okay, I got it. The next year come by. Like, Mr. Hines, what was that again? He's like, lead people, manage things, count money. I'm like, oh, yeah, I got it. And it took me a long time to build that image because it is an image.
It is.
It becomes an image, and people scratch their head. They're like, what are you talking about? And he was right. He is spot on right.
Yeah.
Because if you lead people, and you can't really manage money, he says. You can just manage things that happen. Right. And then in the end, you count money. So when you're going through your metrics or you're measuring your business and you're wondering, how much money I have in the bank, I mean, you don't have to wonder about that. I mean, that'll pop up on your phone in the morning. You know that. That's not a big question mark. And you know how many bills you have. It's the honesty part of it. It's really why you're doing what you're doing, to your point, Susan, like you mentioned. Why you're doing what you're doing, and if you're in it for the right reasons. If your heart's in it to really, truly help people and to lead them, to influence them in the right way and to build their business with integrity and give them good information to help them operate, then the rest of it will happen for you. Right. The rest of it will happen for you. Then when you come to somebody like us, or you don't have to come to somebody like us. I mean, you should know how to develop a financial statement and look at it and go, okay, I'm making money, I'm not making money. You look in the bank and like, I'm making money, I'm not making money, or what did I do with my money? Well, those are two different things, but nevertheless, the point is that your head's got to be in the right spot if you want to be in business. This is a large duty. This is a huge responsibility you have. There's community involvement. There's management of time, which is massive. And you have this view of, oh, now I have all my time is free. I don't have anybody hanging on me. I go to work 8 to 5, I'm done. Well,
not exactly. not exactly. Not exactly.
Maybe. But it is what you do in your downtime. I'll leave this comment. What you do in your downtime is going to determine who you are. And you'll have your time. You have the luxury of your time flexibility. But what you do in that off time is going to determine what your business does and who you are.
Yep. That's great. That's a great thought to leave with. I'm getting the note that we need to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about how Jim helps small businesses. We'll be right back. We are back. We are here with Jim Laudato from Laudato & Company, CPAs, and we are talking about starting your business and running it by the numbers. So we just finished up listening to, talking with Jim about how he got started in business, and he is, in his own right, a successful entrepreneur, celebrating their 10 years in business.
Thank
Congratulations.
You. Yes.
That is awesome. So this part of the show, Jim, we like to get a little deeper into what it is that you do that really helps the market that you serve. And you started to talk a little bit on the break about how you are focusing on the small to mid-sized businesses and helping them grow along the way. And the people that I love to serve is that early startup phase. You know, it's that everything is in chaos. I thrive personally in chaos. Love that it's never the same moment ever. I know. I just, my mind is like constantly moving from one thought to the next, and how does this flow? And, but at some point in time, once the concept and the idea is sort of out of the bag, you've got to sit down and create that foundation.
True.
You've got to know. Last week we talked about the legal side of it with an attorney and how they go through and how people structure from a legal standpoint.
The entity and everything.
Yeah, the entity and everything. And, Pam Kurt was our guest, and she discussed, the importance of being side by side with your accounting people.
Yes.
And there was a huge discussion around that. And so, from the financial standpoint, let's start at the beginning. I'm a brand new entrepreneur.
Okay.
I need to get things set up.
Okay.
Go. I walked in your office and said, Jim, here's my idea. I need help setting up. Go.
Okay, where are we at?
Where are we at? What do I do?
Gotcha.
What do I do?
Well, first of all, I would say I'm glad you're here first.
Yeah.
And we usually do say that. We usually sometimes we're maybe the third person down the line. They'll run to the bank possibly, or they'll start with the attorney, or they might start with us. And we always like to start with us. And the reason we like to start with us because we're the end game, meaning that we have to prepare the tax return. Generally, is what we serve as well in the end, and also we're providing the results of your operation. So we always like to make sure that you're understood about how all that works and how that's going to fit, and then work our way backwards into where you're at. So meaning that a lot of times maybe they'll get set up as an entity that maybe isn't necessarily they're ready for, or maybe they'll go down the road of payroll or maybe a retirement plan that they're just not ready for. We're talking about a startup company. We're trying to make it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
And generally, and this is not legal advice at all, but from our standpoint, from a tax standpoint, which is certainly what we're able to speak on, what we like to set up, and if you're a sole owner, single member, limited liability company, okay? So we have one owner, single member limited liability company. What is required from a tax standpoint is simply a schedule called a Schedule C attached to your personal tax return, which you typically file anyway. So if you're used to getting a W-2 from somebody, you have a tax return that has one line on it, maybe a W-2, and some deductions and exemptions, and you pay your tax, so you maybe get a little bit of money back. Well, now, instead of having a W-2, you're going to have the profit or loss from your business representing your income.
So I still need to keep my finances separate.
Absolutely.
Keep
always,
everything separate.
Right. That's always separate. But the single member limited liability company as a company, and from a legal standpoint, offers you protection, keeps your personal assets separate from the business assets.
Right.
That's the reason you're a limited liability company.
Right.
And then, but from a simplicity standpoint, from a tax planning standpoint, that's the easiest form to produce. Now, will it save you the most tax? Not necessarily, and that might be a longer subject from a tax standpoint, but later on, there's a way to convert you to an S corporation, which some people maybe understand an S corporation. A lot of people are S corporations or limited liability companies.
Okay.
Well, S corporations, the difference is that there's a little bit of a tax savings on the Social Security piece.
Oh, okay.
So there's a little bit of difference there. There's not a huge savings. And then if you are an S corporation, then you have to file a separate tax return, not just something attached to your schedule. So it adds more cost to our side.
Right.
So we don't necessarily, we're here. I have an affinity for, especially for startup companies. I was a startup myself. I know what you're going through.
Right.
You want to keep things as simple as possible. You want to keep things as organized as possible. You don't want to be blindsided by anything.
Right. And I do well just to make sure that I'm using the right debit card or credit card. Is it the business card or is it the personal card?
Yes.
And I mean, just sort of figuring that out on my busy schedule of a day. It's, that's...
No, it's challenging.
That's where, it is a challenge. No. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to transfer money. But I just think I'll spend it this and then I'll reimburse myself. Right?
Well, yeah.
And you start doing that dip thing, and
you got to be careful with that. You got to be careful with that because if you're taking money out of the company, that means companies must be making money.
We hope so.
Well, if you're taking money out of the company, then the company's making money.
Right.
And if it's making money, so as an example, say you make $20,000 as an example in your first year, and theoretically you should have $20,000 in the bank. Well, part of that $20,000 of profit is Uncle Sam's and the other government agencies.
Right.
So say you're only entitled to $15,000 of that. Well, if you take the whole 20. Then you took $5,000 of the government's money, and now when tax time comes around, you have the money.
They're not going to be happy.
So it's you got to be to keep those two things separate. Now, how do you pay yourself out of a single member limited liability company? You just like you said, Susan. You can take a draw. And I would suggest that you try to do that. You try to be consistent. You want to take your $500.
So it's like paying yourself,
absolutely.
Right?
Get yourself on a budget, but you have to talk to an advisor and say, okay, I made X amount of dollars. How much should I leave for taxes? Well, we do tax projections, and we give you estimated taxes based on a certain amount of profit, so on and so forth. So you could theoretically, let's just pick a number, $500 a week. Okay, on Friday, cut yourself a check for $500, and then on the quarters, we cut a check for the taxes, and we keep a close eye on it going forward.
So in some cases, then, that you're going to do a payroll tax? You're going to do a payroll for just the solopreneur?
Well, that's...
Or would you pay them on a draw and then have them pay their own tax?
Right. As a single member limited liability company, okay, you're like a sole proprietor, so you don't have a payroll like you're used to.
Right.
Or they take the taxes out of your check and they give you the net.
Right.
We have to manage all that right now.
Right, and that's the
tricky.
important trick there as a solopreneur. A lot of them don't realize that they are going to have this tax liability when they start drawing money from the business.
Very true.
And
Very true.
you know, there's a lot of consulting that needs to go around that, I think.
Right.
So early on in the early stages, then, you know, is it wise then to get a program like maybe QuickBooks or Peachtree or there's a new one out on the market that's for, you know, just the real easy peasy stuff called FreshBooks. Not sure if you've heard of that. It's in the clouds. I've used it. It's really quite good for sending out quick invoices and things of that nature. Does very basic accounting, profit and loss kind of stuff.
Oh, you hit the nail on the head. It's all in the setup.
Yeah.
It's just like anything else. It's all in the setup. It's if you're comfortable paying your bills online, then there's a product out there called in QuickBooks Online. We like to suggest that. We don't get anything from it. We get a little bit of a discount because we
Your
utilize
resellers?
that. Yeah. Well, we're not necessarily resellers. They just know that we're a source for them, so they give us a little bit of a break. And we don't get anything from that at all, but it helps us.
Oh, okay.
It certainly helps us because the data is in one spot. It's not on your hard drive.
Right.
And when your hard drive crashes or whatever, or if we have to look at the books, we're not to get to your house, or we're not going and remote into your computer and opening up the whole thing. So it functions with your bank. It's relatively inexpensive. I think for the premier version is $30 a month. If you really want to do a simple start, which sounds like that product you were just talking about, it's like $12 a month.
Right.
And the QuickBooks goes out at night, grabs the data, pulls it back into QuickBooks, and holds it there. And then you could be in Jababaland and I could be in Chardon, and we could say, okay, what do you want to do with whatever costs there are, and we put them in the right classification. And we start building your financial statement. Then we can have this conversation, this dialogue, and we memorize reports, and it works very well, especially for startup companies. So yeah, the accounting system is going to be key. So
for someone who has never had to work with an accounting system of any kind, and maybe they're not so techno savvy,
okay,
you know, you can help them set this up, right?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, and you help educate them along the way, and
we do.
Okay,
we do. We generally,
that's a scary thing for a lot of people. I don't know how to do this, so therefore I'll ignore it, and maybe it'll go away.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a very good point. This is not my accounting system. These aren't our financial statements. You know, my guy does. I hear this a lot. Oh, my guy's got it. He's got it. You're my guy.
Right.
Well, no. I'm not. I'm your guy. There's no doubt about it. I'm your guy. I'm in your corner till the end. But these are your sets of books. This is what you're doing.
These are your numbers.
These are your numbers. You have to look at your baby, no matter if you think it's pretty or if it's not.
Right.
This
Sometimes
is what's
the baby's
going on.
not pretty.
It's not, and you might be like, all right, well, I mean, and I know that you do a great job of this with your client, Susan, but your budget, your expectations coming out of the gate really need to be drafted. They really need to be drafted. They need to be measured against what actually is happening.
Right.
So you could see where you're at, and that doesn't mean if they're not meeting expectations, that means you throw in the towel. That doesn't mean that at all.
Yeah.
That means you adjust. That means then I need, if my overall costs are such, and I'm obligated to the rent, and I know, and I have everything else covered, all my fixed costs and all the things I can't control, that's the cost of your product. Unless you plan on, and you want to take home $150,000 in the first year, well, then maybe the first one to get a pay cut's going to be you. That's the first cut that's going to be made.
That might be a hard conversation to have when you have that monthly meeting with yourself. But
it's true. I mean, if you really want, and the very first thing I would do, I get a sheet of paper out and I start at the bottom.
Right.
And I'd
at
say,
the bottom.
Always at the bottom.
You start at the bottom.
At
This
the
is
very,
interesting.
At the very bottom, I'd start at the bottom and I'd say, Kelly, who's my wife, I would say, how much money do we need to bring into this house after tax in order to make things work?
Okay.
And I would say that's a number. Let's just use whatever, $10,000.
Okay.
All right,
That's
we need
a
to
big
bring
number.
$10,000.
Okay.
All right, that's what I need to have at the bottom.
At the bottom?
That's right. That's my money.
Wow. So that's like in the bank at the end of the month. That's what needs to be there in order to pay the bills.
Well, I was talking annually. I was just trying to.
Annually.
Yeah. I was
okay.
I was not going monthly, but.
Oh, okay. I was going to say $10,000 a month. That's a pretty good paycheck.
No. Yeah. No, actually, that's the bottom line of your. This is the bottom line of the business. Now, we haven't talked about taxes or anything else. You have taxes, then you have more than that.
All right.
So the point is that your business is your paycheck. That's your gross pay.
Right.
If you used to bring in $50,000 gross, so that's what your W-2 says, well, that bottom line better say $50,000.
Gotcha.
And then we start working our way backwards. Or we work our way up the scale. Say, what cost do we know we have? Well, I obligated myself to 3 years of rent, and that's going to be $1,000 a month, whatever it is. And we keep, I got an employee, I got to bring them on. That's $15,000, whatever. And we keep working our way up the scale. And we arrive at an overall cost of what this business is costing us.
Right.
We know what if we're selling merchandise, we know what the product costs, right?
Right.
We know, we have labor and we have supplies, we have freight and whatever. Depending on what business you're in, it doesn't matter. We keep working our way up to the top, and then we say, okay, I got to cover up. This is what I have to sell in a year. How many of these things do I have to sell?
Right.
Well, if I'm in a service business and I say, well, I need to produce, call it $100,000 of whatever I'm selling, and I'm at an hourly rate of
$25 an
whatever,
hour.
$25 an hour. Here we go.
Yeah. How many?
And this is how many I got to do a week. This is how many I got to do a month. This is how many I have to do a year in order to make all this all work out. That's perfectly, right?
Yeah.
It's like building a house. You're not going to be able to, it's not going to come out perfectly.
Right.
So,
but at least you have something to start with. You have a yardstick by which to measure.
True.
And that's where a lot of business owners, I think, can't wrap their heads around. How do I create that yardstick to measure my performance? And that's a great exercise to go through. I've never seen it done quite that way. I usually started with the top down, but that's an excellent tool.
But it's going to drive the sales.
Absolutely.
It's going to drive the sales. And when we do budgets, we always do break-even budgets. So we take the middle. We take the middle part. We determine all of our costs.
Right. That's the easy part usually.
We take all of our costs. We know who we're paying. We know we're going to do. We got health insurance. We got all kinds of other things going on. We got insurances and other stuff. And then, so those are all our costs. Our sales must have to be that, and then we're done. So because the bottom line is zero.
Right.
So once you start building in your salary, so if you know you're going to live off your savings for the first 4 or 5 months, then this bottom line needs to be zero, not $10,000 in my example. And then you move on from there. So after you get past these plateaus and you start moving forward, then you start looking at percentages. You start looking at margins.
And so that starts to build the story going forward.
Correct.
Right.
Right. Then you start benchmarking yourself against yourself.
Oh, and that's when it gets fun.
No, then you're cooking, right?
Yeah,
then
now you're cooking with gas, right? Oh, that's the way to do it. Yeah. And so, let's see. With the advantage of having a CPA like yourself, and an attorney, right, side by side, you had mentioned something about having monthly meetings, right? And so, let's talk about the importance of having a CPA and an attorney at the table at the same time for these monthly meetings. We have about 2 minutes before we have to take another quick break. So
no problem. No problem.
Let's talk the importance about that. That's building your support network, right? To help your business succeed.
Right. Absolutely. Right now, you don't have the luxury as a sole owner. You don't have the luxury of multiple disciplines in the same room. I mean, until you hire salespeople and purchasing people and other people with different disciplines within your business. The advantage that you would have, and that doesn't necessarily, I know you're thinking expensive. It's going to be expensive to have both these people in the same room at the same time.
Right.
But I would tell you, look at it from a advancement or a marketing or not necessarily, what have you done for me lately and get out of here. Your time's up because you're $150 an hour and head out the door. But have your agenda concise. Get information. You're going to get what you have here is third-party objectivity.
Right, and that's really needed for everybody, especially solopreneurship.
We're not selling anything.
We live in our heads. Mm-hmm. We live in our heads.
Mm-hmm. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And then once that happens, we can't possibly, I always say this too, is we can't possibly advise you if we don't know what's going on in your business.
Right.
We have to communicate. I don't want to pick it up off your website or Facebook or whatever. I have to look at you in the eye. I have to understand where you're at. Because sometimes your head's screwed up.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just not quite there. So do they have to be monthly? I don't know if they have to be monthly, Susan.
At least quarterly.
Oh, yeah, I would say quarterly in the beginning and mandatory, way before the end of the year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to take another short break, and when we come back, we're going to answer some questions from the mailbag. Be right back. And we are back with Jim Laudato, CPA from Chardon. He is our special guest today, and we are talking about business by the books. Thanks again for being here today, Jim.
No, it's been great. Thank you.
And so we've been having some great conversation, and unfortunately, we have to come to the next section of our show, and that's the mailbag. Mm-hmm. And I say unfortunately because that means the show's almost over. Right. So I was really engrossed in our conversation there, and time just sort of flew by. So this part of the show, what I do is I take a couple of questions from the emails that I get on a weekly basis. Okay. Everybody knew that we were having a CPA on this week. So I am going to pull the first question, and it is, I've been in business for about 10 years now, and am finally admitting to myself that I can't really read financial statements all that well. And I have to say that I'm a little embarrassed by it. How can you help me?
That actually is, that's not uncommon, first of all, because you're so focused on selling your product that you just, for whatever reason, it's one of those painful things if you never picked up on it.
Right.
But I could tell you that with every pain, there's pleasure. So as you get to learn it, and as you get to understand financial statements, it becomes a lot easier. It's just a matter of working with it. Find the professional, your professional that you're using. Admit to them that. That'll give them goosebumps. They like explaining stuff like that. CPAs love telling, they'll paint the picture. Mm-hmm. They paint the picture, and they want people to look at it. A lot of times it gets thrown in the closet. Nobody looks at it.
And they like to teach.
They absolutely love to teach. CPAs love to teach. They love to explain what your business is doing, because when third parties look at your business, banks, who are other investors, that's how you're running your business, are the results of your operation. So it's extremely important that you're sending the right message. Well, no, I know we're losing money, but that's really not what we're all about. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not. Then why are you losing money? Mm-hmm. Well, it's because we, whatever the excuse is, well, you're not pricing your product correctly. You have the wrong people employed. You're spending too much time in one area. That's all part of running your business. So it all comes out in the numbers. Numbers don't lie. We know all that.
And so you act kind of as a translator, right? You help
absolutely.
to identify where that's being translated by the numbers and teach people how to identify where that language is.
That's the best part of the job. And we don't have to make it complicated, but find a professional that is a tragedy. And you should spend the money. If your CPA is charging you whatever X amount of dollars to sit for an hour to learn this stuff, then I guess that's what it's going to cost you, but it'll cost you a lot more than that by not knowing it.
Yeah, if you don't know it. Good advice. Yes. Good advice.
And the last part about that I want to tell you is there is an end game to this, meaning that if you, from a business valuation standpoint, you have a revenue stream here that you're trying to establish to somebody when you're going to sell this business later on down the road. Mm-hmm. You can't just wake up one day and go, oh, well, I better look at my financial statements because I want to sell the business. What's your business worth? Oh, I don't know.
Right.
Well, how much does it make? I don't know.
Right.
You got to know this number's cold.
Right. It's called living by the books, right?
Yes.
Living the business by the books. Good advice. Mm. Question number 2 is that they've been in business for a couple of years. Okay. And things aren't quite going the way they should, and they're thinking about throwing in the towel. And so the big question is what do you think I should do? And I know that that's a tough question because you don't have a lot of information about the background of the business.
Right.
But if somebody
Right.
came to you and said, I'm thinking about throwing in the towel, I've been doing this for 3-4 years. It's just not making any money. I used to be really passionate about it.
Okay.
What would you say to them?
Okay. Yeah, well, for me personally, that's a very tough question. I'm a pretty competitive person. So, I think at that point, I would analyze. Actually, the coach in me would come out probably, and I would analyze things a little more personally than it would be financially. So I would say, okay, let's go back to your mission statement. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's find out before you give up. Why did we get started here? Are you really putting forth everything that you have? Are you putting your efforts into your product like you wanted to? Or is the competition just beating you up?
Maybe it's just realigning the focus a little bit, having a third-party perspective, and
absolutely
maybe helping them step outside of themselves, outside of their head a little bit.
Refresh yourself, right. Reinvent yourself, refresh yourself, bring your energy level up. Look at you, what's your image like? Do you have the energy you used to? And find that charge again before you because you could be right at the 1 inch line and take it over the goal line. So that's a tough question to answer, but I think it lies within you.
Okay, great. So the next part of the show is the events around town, and so what I do is try to help people find those resources that will help them along the path here. We have one business launcher workshop. That's one that I offer with Lori Gorell. That's being offered on October 2nd. It's a 5-session hands-on workshop to get your business off the ground, being held at the Courtyard Marriott in Willoughby. You can find more information at businesslauncherworkshop.com. Another one is the Chesterland Innovation Center is holding a business boost camp, and that will start on October 7th in Chesterland. It's a 6-session event, and you can find information at 440-729-2902 or email dreamdoor@att.net. And one final one is through SCORE and the Geauga Growth Partnership. They are doing an event that will help you take your business to the next level, sponsored by American Express Open. That one will take place on October 14th at the Newberry Business Park in Newberry, Ohio. And you can find information on that at their website, or you can go to Eventbrite and type in Geauga Growth Partnership and SCORE. If you want more information, you can call 440-564-1060. That's 440-564-1060. And so we're getting to the point where we need to round this out today, Jim. So if someone wanted to get in touch with you to meet you, learn more about you, how would they reach out to you?
You can call us at 440-918-0980. Incidentally, our consultation for startup companies it's always been like this since day one. Is that, like I said, we have an affinity for startup companies, and we offer free advice for if you want to come in and just talk concept. And if we spend 2 hours with you and you walk out the door, we never see you again, we're happy to do that. That's fine. We're located in Chardon, 150 Court Street, Chardon. Just off of 44. 2 miles off 44. And then our website is Laudato and Company, spelled out Laudato and Company.
.com?
.com, yes.
And your phone number is?
440-918-0980.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. So be sure to join us next week as we talk about insuring your greatest assets. That would be you and your business. Our guest will be Walt Voisey. He is co-owner of Voisey & Voisey Insurance. And remember that this show is for you, so be sure to send your questions to help@makemyvisionreal.biz. That's help@makemyvisionreal.biz. Thanks for joining us tonight. I wish you good luck and good business. Have a great evening.
You've been listening to Make My Vision Real, a local resource for starting and growing your small business. Visit makemyvisionreal.biz for more information on connections to local resources. Send your questions for next week's show to help@makemyvisionreal.biz. Today's program was brought to you by the Business Launcher Workshop, a workshop designed by women for women to make their business vision real. Find out more at businesslauncherworkshop.com. The show's founder and host, Susan Swartzwelder, is a small business specialist. Tune in every Sunday from 6 to 7 p.m. as Susan and her guests share ideas and resources to help you start and grow the successful business of your dreams.